Hello, how's it going? How's everyone doing? I know it's Thursday afternoon after a very busy, long Toronto Tech Week, but I need some energy. How's everyone doing? All right, there we go. Well, welcome to AI Gatherings. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Iran Karimian. I'm the head of Google Canada Startup and Accelerator programs. I hope you're all having an awesome Toronto Tech Week. Thanks so much for spending your Thursday afternoon with us. So for those of you who are new, Toronto AI Gatherings is an event series that connects the brightest minds in AI who are building a better future. We've got a room full of founders, developers, and AI experts all ready to unlock and see how AI can bring new opportunities and tackle some of the biggest challenges of our time. We have many folks joining us online, so welcome everyone. Before we dive in, I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. I'd like to start by acknowledging that Google Canada is situated upon ancestral lands. Across all of Turtle Island, there are many Indigenous peoples, nations, and lands that have been affected by colonization. Taking the opportunity to acknowledge the original stewards of these lands is a way towards reconciliation. Okay, so who is new to AI gatherings? All right. Who's been to AI gatherings before? Okay, a few hands. Welcome back. And I'm so glad to see so many new people here too. So for those who don't know, AI Gatherings is all about bringing together AI founders and developers. We're really trying to create an AI first community, really bringing together the best minds to share and for Google to share what's coming up next from AI. So now is truly the best time ever to build with Google. There has never been a faster, cheaper, or more powerful time to build because next generation tools have turned developer architects into architects who can turn any idea into a live, market-ready product over a single weekend. And we're in for a real treat today. Today's event will bring together Google DeepMind, Google Cloud experts as they share the latest, and we're joined by DigitalSamaritan, a creator and entrepreneur. So we're really excited to have our speakers here today, and we've got an awesome agenda for you. So here's our agenda. We'll have an hour and a half together. Like I mentioned earlier, we have some friends from Google DeepMind here, some friends from Google Cloud, and so we're really excited to share the latest with you. So last week was Google I/O, and Google showcased the latest in AI products and technology, including Gemini 3.5 Flash, Omni, Gemini Spark, and a complete redesign of Google Search. So joining us next is Amit Vadi, Head of Community Developer Experience at Google DeepMind. He leads community strategy for developer experience, and he's joining us from London, so a true homecoming for him. He's originally from Toronto, lives in London now, and has made his way back for this event. His work focuses on bridging the gap between cutting-edge AI research and the developers who build with it. He ensures that the community has access to resources, tools, and support needed to innovate responsively and effectively. He spoke on the Toronto Tech Week homecoming stage yesterday, and today he's here to share with us the latest from Google I/O. So please join me in welcoming Amit to the stage.
All right, good afternoon, and it's so great to be here. Thank you, Iran and team, for putting together this beautiful event. And yeah, it's so wonderful to be here during Toronto Tech Week. It's actually been 4 years since I've been back to Canada, so great to see how the ecosystem's evolved and seeing so many great builders this week. It's truly exciting. I think it's such an amazing time to be a builder, and as Iran mentioned, there's never been a better time to be a builder with Google in particular. So we had a pretty busy week last week at I/O. I'm going to give you a quick run through how to condense an hour and a half keynote into about 10 minutes here. So we're going to run through the latest announcements. But just to give you a little bit of insight first on what the DeepMind team have been up to, you probably heard about Google DeepMind as being this very research-driven frontier lab. Actually, if you go back 10 years ago, there was a famous AlphaGo moment in Seoul where we had the first time where AI actually defeated the world champion at the time, Lee Sedol, in this famous Go match. And the reference was to the Move 37 as the first time we ever saw this really creative solution from an AI. But I always love referencing that because Move 78, I think, was one of the things you don't hear a lot about, but this was in match 4 when Lee Sedol had to come up with this really innovative tactic to actually beat AlphaGo. And I feel like that is the opportunity for all you builders in this space right now. You have all these amazing tools and models to build with, but it's up to you to actually build these novel and creative solutions. So there's truly never been a better time to be a builder. And referencing back to 2016 was actually when Sundar boldly declared that Google was an AI-first company. So we've been doing this for about 10 years now, being an AI-first company. And just a couple of years ago in DeepMind, we brought together Google Brain and DeepMind to form what is now Google DeepMind. And then just last year, we brought all the model teams also into DeepMind, so we have this really tight integration from research to reality. And you've probably noticed that Google has been pretty busy over the last couple of years. On an average week, we have about 1 shipment. And some weeks, there's 5 to 7 things that go out. So it's truly a super exciting time to be building with Google, but also servicing the teams internally. We have this ability at DeepMind to be really the engine room of innovation and pushing AI products across all of our interfaces as well. And it's been pretty incredible to see just the progress internally. And just the past 2 years, we've gone from about 25% of our code being generated internally from AI to just as of last month, Sundar declared that we're at 75% now. So it's great to see the progress internally and how that's making its way out into all the consumer and builders across the world. And in fact, 7 of those products now that we have across our Google ecosystem service about 2 billion users. And we have 15 products that have over 500 million users. So Gemini is truly paving the way forward. We had some really exciting announcements last week, but just again to look back across both the frontier models on Gemini and in our open model series with Gemma, it's been pretty incredible to see in a couple years how those models have progressed. I hope you all feel the performance gains as well in your day-to-day life. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on our latest models, Gemini 3.5 Flash. This is our latest in the Frontier model series. We're really pushing the boundaries here of cost efficiency and performance. It continues to be at the top of this Pareto frontier. And it's actually even better than 3.1 Pro across a lot of coding and agentic benchmarks, which is super exciting. I hope you have got a chance to try it out. If not, I'll be around to show you later. But this is how the model series is looking now. So we have now generally available the 3.1 Flash Lite model. This is our power horse model, great for scale deployment. Again, one of our most cost-efficient models in the series. You have 3.5 Flash in the middle, and then you have 3.5 Pro, which we're working on really extensively right now. We're super excited to get this out in the market in the coming months. But we have a little more refinement to do around that before we get it out, but we're super excited to pave the way forward with our 3.5 series. So I think where our models across the board show that there's such a breadth and offering across Google right now, and it really can service customer needs and developer needs across the world, which is really exciting. We already have a lot of amazing companies that are building with Gemini. This is just highlighting just so many different industries and verticals that the team have been working with many amazing partners. So from Klein, Cursor, Thomson Reuters, Shopify, LangChain, there's so many amazing partners across the world that are really bringing this Gemini experience to the next level. And for us, this validates a lot of the work that we do internally. As much as we love developing, dog fooding our own products, we want to see it out in the world and see all these amazing solutions being built. So one thing I think I always like to come back to is Gemini from day one has been built to be natively multimodal. And if you see that progression chart over the past few years, there have obviously been a lot of pain points when you develop with this multimodality first approach. But I feel like we got now to the stage with the Gemini 3 series where you're really seeing all these inputs and outputs coming together to truly create these next generation experiences. So whether from text, image, audio, video, code, you have that ability both for input and output. And I think that is a super critical distinction to make when you're thinking about the Gemini model series. This is one of the few foundational models in the world, if not the only, that has this ability to take all these inputs and have these outputs as well. And with some of our new models, you have this anything-to-anything capability. So definitely something you want to keep in mind when you're building with Gemini, and you have the ability to use things like maps grounding, search grounding, MCP to really enhance the experience as well and create these beautiful AI-powered applications. And speaking of lots of options, you have the Gemini API. You have the Live API as well, which we have been doing a lot of work on over the past year. This allows you to have this low latency, real-time voice and interaction. So you can start building voice agents. It has the ability to process audio, images, text, and really deliver this human-like spoken responses. If you haven't tried the Live API model out, I highly recommend it. It has actually made some fantastic progress, and we have the new 3.1 Flash Live model that's ready for you to start building with. We've also shipped a lot of Gen Media models over the past year and a half. Just at I/O last year, we launched the first iteration of VO 3, but just seeing how the video, audio, and image has like really progressed over the past year. I think if you saw what you're getting now a couple years ago, you would have been truly blown away. But I think now we just live in this world where things are moving so quickly, it feels quite normal. But just in a couple years' time, and you look back that we're at Imagen 3 and VO. Now we're at VO 3.1. We have Flash Lite models, text-to-speech models, and our brand new Omni model, which we're super excited about. This is truly bringing together this anything-to-anything input-output modality. We'll come back to that a little bit. But Omni, I'm super excited to see what people are building with. But we have this beautiful series from VO 3.1 to Gemini 3.1 Flash Image, aka Nano Banana. I hope everybody has tried Nano Banana or experienced some of the delight you get with this product over the past year. We now have Nano Banana Pro, we have Nano Banana 2, and you also have Nano Banana Flash. So again, gives you lots of options as you're thinking about your Gen Media proposition. So you have the ability to dial down pixel resolutions. You can go from 512 pixels up to 8K images. You have 14 different types of resolution. So for you media and creative folks out there, this gives you a lot of options to build with. You can try it out at ai.studio/banana. And yeah, it's just been really amazing to see the progress here. There's a funny story that one of our engineers codenamed this Nano Banana 3 in the morning for an LM Arena test, and the name has stuck since, and I think it has a better ring to it than 3.1 Flash Image. But it's been really incredible to see how Nano Bananas evolve for images. And with Gemini Omni Flash, we really feel that this is the Nano Banana moment for videos. This was a huge step forward in terms of our capabilities. And we've had this vision from the start with our Gen Media series of bringing all these models together. And I think this is represented so well with Omni Flash. If you haven't seen over the past week, we've been seeing a ton of traction on social. And the most amazing part is when we get these models out in the world and actually seeing the creative applications that you folks build. So we've been really inspired internally. We're super excited to get this into the API over the coming weeks. And hopefully your builders can keep pushing the limits there. But I'm going to put a quick video up for you here. So if you haven't seen it, it gives you a little insight into what we're working on. So truly bringing research to reality here, it's pretty incredible to see what you can do with the model. It's available in the Gemini app or in Flow as well if you want to get started today. But I said it will be in the API very soon, so I'm excited to see how you keep pushing the boundaries here. Google Anti-Gravity is the new agentic platform from the DeepMind team. We actually launched this back in November last year. We've seen some great progress both on the IDE front and the agentic workflow side. And then last week we just introduced Anti-Gravity 2.0. We now actually separated the experience. You have this native agentic experience. You can get started at antigravity.google. You also still have the option to download the IDE separately as well. And that workflow is already baked into the experience as well. But great to see that this agent-first platform has really been developing over the past year, and I think you've probably felt it with the model capabilities since December in particular, that they really have enhanced this proposition of agentic capabilities. And the team have been shipping at a pretty relentless pace. With Anti-Gravity 2.0, you have sub-agents, projects, permissions, workstream support, scheduled tasks, live voice transcription. There's some really fun new slash commands as well. So you can use goal, grill me, schedule. You can even say slash by the way if you want to like interact with your conversation, and it actually won't take away from the main conversation. Has universal sandboxing, there's nice CLI features. Actually, Anti-Gravity also launched their SDK as well, so you can actually build with the Anti-Gravity harness as well. And you actually have Gemini 3.5 Flash natively in Anti-Gravity as well. So it's really up the performance, and the speed of the latest model is pretty incredible. But speaking of the harness, so the Anti-Gravity harness is actually a key component of Google AI Studio. It's the fastest path from prompts to apps. We're super excited by, first of all, the redesign of AI Studio. We've got a brand new brand template, which we're really excited about. We also just launched the applications or pre-registration for our mobile applications. So you can actually build full end-to-end applications. You have Firebase, auth support with AI Studio. And now you have the ability to build native Android apps as well. So a huge list of announcements as well from the AI Studio team. They've been shipping at a pretty relentless cadence as well over the past year. You can see across the board, full content, export, Android development, in-browser emulators, workspace integrations, which is really cool. You can now actually add Gmail, calendar, all these types of applications to your builds itself in AI Studio. You have web grounding, multi-chat context. There's so many areas that the team have been pushing on. We're really trying to define this next generation build experience. And you can actually deploy directly to Cloud Run. You can set up a website URL. You can do this all natively in AI Studio itself. So one of the best pathways into our ecosystem and a great way to get started with the Gemini models. And we have, like I said, we have a mobile app coming very soon. You can pre-register on both iOS and Android. And it should launch in the next week, which we're super excited to see people that can build anything, anywhere. I think it's a really exciting time to be a builder in that sense. You can get started at ai.studio, or you can download Anti-Gravity. The link's there. Yes, so there's a lot going on the Gemini side, but also for developers, we have the Interactions API. We first launched this in beta last year with the deep research model. Really has amplified what you can do with these agentic experiences. There were some fantastic examples that my colleagues Thor and Philip put together last week, so you can actually watch all the I/O content now online. Highly recommend spending some time with how you can build agents with our latest model. And you really can build these new agentic experiences. So my colleagues are going to be showing you a little bit more here shortly how you can do that. But I think one of the main areas I want to highlight today is this new Manage Agents feature. You can now utilize Google's infrastructure to build your own agent. Just one single API call to the Anti-Gravity agent will provision this Linux environment. You can enable resource shrinking. You can use the correct default ProGuard file, and you can enable full mode. So it's really enhancing this proposition for developers. We're really excited to see, again, you've pushed the boundaries here with our agentic capabilities. So there's a lot going on the frontier model side. You saw all the developments on the 3.5 Flash, our Gen Media models, but we're also very invested into the open model series. So we actually just had Gemma 4 that launched about 4 weeks ago. This is the latest iteration in our open models, open weight series. Gemma 4 has had a fantastic reception so far. I think we're over 100 million downloads already. The cumulative life cycle is over 500 million downloads. The great part with the Gemma models in particular is that you can fine-tune them for your specific use cases. So we've seen almost 100 million variants already of the Gemma series. Strong performance across the board. You have 4 different model sizes. There's the E2B, E4B, 26B, and 31B models. Gives you a wide range of areas to develop with. The 2B and 4B are particularly great for on-device mobile processing. You can download that actually on the AI Edge Gallery, and you can get started today. But also 26B, 31B are great for running on just one GPU. Agentic native, truly multimodal. It supports 140 languages out the box, video, image, audio. And the great news with Gemma 4 is the move to the Apache 2.0 license, which we're super excited about. And yeah, we're excited to keep pushing the boundaries with the Gemma models. I think just to highlight quickly some of the benefits of these models. So you have local ability. As I mentioned, you can run these models offline use. You don't actually require a cell phone, which is pretty incredible when you see the capabilities of the models and what you can do without any reception. You have low latency, you have savings. Just across the board, I think the proposition of this hybrid architecture continues to improve. So definitely think about utilizing the Gemma models for some of your on-device inference, but also think about this for building these next-generation native offline experiences. And speaking of which, so Google has this beautiful open source TPU software stack as well. So we are working across the board from inference, post-training, pre-training, model building. And you have all these different types of tools as well. So you have Jackson, PyTorch, which are great for inference. You have our post-training and reinforcement learning for agentic frameworks for post-training. You have LLMs that can be optimized in JAX. Again, these are native frameworks to Google, which is great to see you have that type of experience. And then finally, on the model framework side, you have native CUDA-like experiences with JAX and Torch TPU. So brand new experience that we're trying to push the PyTorch code with, and there's actually no TPUs required for the code changes here as well. So excited to see you folks, again, have the ability to innovate across all these areas. And I think it's a way that only Google can operate in this space. And it's a good segue into the final side of Google is truly taking a full stack approach to AI. There's no other company in the world that has investments up and down the stack, and it allows us to innovate at every level of the stack. So when you're considering building with Google, you have that ability to be innovating across every part of the stack, but you also are part of the journey as we continue to improve across these layers, which is super exciting. And there's truly never been a better time to be a builder. Our goal at DeepMind is to make AI helpful for everybody. And we are all collectively, this first generation, building these tools for a world where anybody can create anything. So thank you all for your time today. I really appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me. My colleagues are going to get into the fun bit of what you can do with the new agentic capabilities, but I do recommend giving a shot to ai.studio/build. You can try all this new native functionality. And if you build anything, you can reach out to me, and I'd love to hear any feedback, good and bad, you have. But excited, again, to see what you folks keep doing. I think I'm just super excited by the atmosphere here in Canada this week, and spending a little bit of time with you here today has been such a pleasure. We're going to keep pushing the rock up the hill at DeepMind. We're going to keep pushing the model capabilities, product capabilities. We want to see what you're able to do with these and truly think about these 10x, 100x moments that are around the corner. I think, as I mentioned, there's never been a better time to be a builder, and I'm going to hand you out to my colleagues to show you how that all looks. Thank you.
Thank you. Whoa, that's a lot. Talk about relentless dripping. That's amazing. Thank you so much for that recap and summary. So now we are setting up for the next segment in our AI Gatherings event. We're going to dive into a lively discussion about building the autonomous future. So while the team is setting up the stage here, I'm going to introduce our next speakers before welcoming them out. So our next two speakers are Smitha, Kolan, and Kashank Agrawal, aka DigitalSamaritan, and they'll be discussing building the autonomous future. Smitha is on a mission to help developers master the shift from chatbots to autonomous agents. As a senior DevRel engineer at Google Cloud, she focuses on the intersection of AI and developer productivity with a particular emphasis on agentic experiences and MCP. She has a combined audience of 100,000 followers and is known for breaking down complex machine learning architectures into actionable insights. Kashank Agrawal, also known as DigitalSamaritan, is a YouTube creator entrepreneur on a mission to make 1 billion people AI fluent. He is also the founder of Practically AI, an AI upskilling company for professionals, and co-founder of Prompt Genie, a prompt token optimization platform. So it looks like we're all set up out here, so I'm going to welcome Smitha and Kashank to the stage.
Hello, everyone. So that talk by the DeepMind team and Amit was so good. The agentic stack, AI studio, honestly, the perfect setup for what Kashank and I are about to get into. Before we dive in, quick thank you to Iran and Wendy and the team here at Google for putting this together. So, I'm Smitha Kolan, senior AI developer engineer at Google Cloud. I also host something called the Asian Factory podcast on Google Cloud Tech, and that's actually the main reason why Kashank and I are here, sitting here today, because of the podcast. He was actually the very first guest that we had on in 2026. We had so much fun that this event actually came up. So today we're going to talk about how builders and developers are building with AI. Kashank represents the builder someone who ships fast with AI, often without writing traditional code. And then I represent the developer, someone closer to the infrastructure, the deployment story, and the production side. And then we also want to show you how both sides are, kind of building with Google AI today, where they overlap and where they kind of differ, and honestly, why that line is also getting blurrier like every month. So Kushank, before we get into it, introduce yourself.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks to Wendy and Iran as well for inviting me to this event. I'm flying in from Vancouver just for this. And thanks for everyone being here, actually, here to hear us talk about this thing. Quick introduction. So my name is Kushank. I started talking about AI in 2020 when I was bored in COVID. I went to school for engineering, but I worked in product. And I always thought I'm a generalist in a way because I just like doing too many things. And the reason I started talking about AI tools in 2020 because I saw them as a way to bridge the time and the skill gap, which is going to be a theme of what I'm going to talk about today a lot. And now I feel like if this technology is as powerful as we think it is, then I think everyone has a right to learn this. They should be able to know how to actually use this technology, and I should be able to leverage the technology to actually provide that education to people, which is why I'm building multiple channels on socials now. My main channel is DigitalSamaritan across all socials, and my mission is to try to teach 1 billion people and help them become AI fluent. So thanks for being one of them.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so let's kind of actually define the words that we're talking about, because I think builder and developer often they get used interchangeably, right? And they shouldn't. There's actually a difference between them. So Kushank, you call yourself a creator, entrepreneur. You ship products, you run an AI workforce, you build platforms, but you don't come from a traditional software engineering background. So in your words, who is an AI builder in 2026, and then how are they learning to build?
I think anyone who's trying to build anything, it could be a product, it could be a business, it could be a video, you're trying to produce content, you're trying to produce music. If you're leveraging AI in your workflows, I would call them as AI builder right now.
Yeah, and I love that framing. From my side, as a developer, I think a developer historically has always been someone kind of close to the how. So how does this scale? How do I handle state? And how do I deploy this? What happens if this breaks at 3 a.m.?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So someone who doesn't necessarily have, maybe they don't have AI or machine learning experience, but they're building software, or they're a data engineer building data pipelines, and now they're trying to integrate agents or even build an AI stack. So, but here's where it kind of gets interesting, right? And this is what we're trying to unpack here today. These two worlds of builders and developers, they're kind of colliding today, in the last couple of years or months. And for example, you can easily spin up a full application in AI Studio or anti-gravity without writing a single line of code. And I think that's amazing. And then as a developer, I also can do a lot of these things. I can build scaffolding in 30 seconds or so. So what's kind of your thoughts on how things are progressing?
To go back to the builder part, I think the exciting part is how technology is a great enabler. You wake up 2 o'clock in the morning, you have this idea. You don't have to wait for someone's permission or wait to learn a certain skill. You can get to that first version, no matter how scrappy that looks, instantly. Which is where I feel like the great power of builder comes in with AI, because you can get to visualize your idea right away. And then developer part comes in to actually take it to the next stage where you can actually get closer to the deployment. So the builder and developer part, I would say builder is could just build it. Developer is actually get it closer to the deployment from a perspective of code and software products in this specific scenario.
I love that. And I think I definitely agree with how you're looking at things. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. So let's actually get into something you said on the podcast episode that we had, and that really kind of stuck with me. You basically warned people not to jump straight into building complex agentic frameworks just because there's a hype around it. You said start with something super simple workflows first. Why? And do you still believe in that today?
Yeah, I would say so. I think AI still has a last mile problem. You see, when I scroll internet, I get overwhelmed. There's so many videos, everyone's hyping up all the tools. AI killed this, or AI killed that job, AI killed that job. That's all overhyped. OpenClaw got very popular in end of January, beginning of February. And a lot of the things people are doing with OpenClaw can be done with simple automations. And for normal people, I think if you're not in the space, you just feel all this noise from the outside, constantly bombarding that you're not doing things right, you're so left behind. I think that's just like a very bad mentality that's being pushed overall as a narrative. The other thing is a lot of those things are actually simple workflow automations that are more predictable, can be built simply. For example, the biggest use case I saw with OpenClaw when it got very viral was you have your agent, a chief of staff or something, giving you all the updates of what needs to be done in the morning. That's a very simple Google Workspace automation. You go in there, there's a pre-built template, you click on it, it's going to go through your Drive, it's going to go through your meeting notes, it's going to go through emails and tell you a quick, in a tab in your Gmail app on your phone, all the things you should be prioritizing. Very simple example of how a lot of those agents are a bit overblown at the moment, I would say. The other piece is you need reliability. And like I said, AI still has a last mile problem. Unless you start building piece by piece, like you would build any piece of software, you start with a smaller feature, you add one more feature, you add one more feature, you integrate them together. The same way I think we should be building these AI agents, where you start with something small, see if it works, you test and test and iterate. Once it works, you build another component, test and test and test. And eventually when they all start working together individually, then you orchestrate them together in a way that could be more on autopilot, which a lot of people don't talk about because they're just talking about the flashy demos that gets the clicks and the views and everybody talk about them.
I think that this entire thing can also be completely translated to how developers might be building super complex things when there might be an easier solution. Sometimes simplicity is key. And the funny thing is I see the exact same trap on the developer side, right? People come to me and say like, okay, I want to build a multi-agent systems with XYZ sub-agents and a router, etc. And then I'm like, okay, so what exactly are you trying to do? Turns out it's something super simple and you just needed an agent with maybe multiple skills, for example. So I think this problem exists for both developers and builders. And I definitely see that you can build something super simple without needing really complex systems in place. Yeah. And then I think that also gets to the point of agent skills, right? That's something which a lot of people are talking about. And Google is actually publishing a white paper that I'm also a part of writing, and we're publishing it on agent skills. And have you seen developers or builders who are following you using skills in their workflow?
Skills are very popular. Anytime anybody posts a video about, hey, here's a skill that can do this thing for you magically, everyone's all over it. But I have a question for you. How would you define an agent skill? What's your definition? Because that's one of the questions I get asked the most, people who are new to skills and they just don't know what a skill is. How would you define that?
Yeah, so I think this is genuinely one of the most interesting shifts that I've seen in the agentic architecture this year. So the simplest way that you can think about it is a skill is a folder with a markdown file in it. That's it. It tells the agent, here's how to do something super specific, like a super specific task, step by step. And I think the simplest example that I actually wrote was, let's say you're building a cafe, an agent for a cafe, for example. A skill could essentially be how much inventory you would need to take care of all of the business in the cafe. So for example, creating coffee or croissants, etc. It could be something super simple as that. Essentially, a skill is all about just getting a simple task done, and that could be something that the agent can repeat on and on and on, essentially.
It's more like an SOP.
Yes.
For any employee who joins the company.
Exactly.
Okay.
I think the more you treat agents like kind of an intern almost, that you need to train from hand-holding all the way to kind of giving them a lot more skills, I think that's how you can build really good agentic systems.
That's a good definition. Usually I talk about in a way that it's like a prompt with some pre-written code, which is where you can sometimes have access to tool calling and stuff, which is where MCP comes in. What are your thoughts on that? Do you usually would put MCP within your skill, or would you just have instructions on use this MCP and then have MCP connected separately, or is that coded into a single skill file?
Okay, yeah, great question. And I know that there's like there's so many new things happening in the agentic system all the time, and there is actually a key distinction. So MCP is all about reach, right? Like connecting your agent to external systems like maybe Drive or Salesforce, BigQuery, even Google Maps, things like that. And Google has a ton of managed MCP servers that we launched just this year. At Google Next, there was 50 plus MCP servers that went GA. So there's a great developer documentation about all of them. Highly recommend you checking it out if you're interested in building with Google managed MCP servers. But MCP is all about reach, right? Skills are about know-how. So that's like the biggest difference. Teaching the agent how to do a specific kind of work. So you can actually compose MCP and skills together in a really nice way. Mm-hmm. So a skill might be something like, you can use an MCP server to do this task. You can teach within a skill to use certain MCP servers to do particular tasks. That's how you could even build a skill around. And this also kind of ties back into something you kind of mentioned, which is like your workflow approach, your workflow first point. Because if you've already kind of mapped out a workflow, that's already a skill. You don't need to do anything else. Yeah. Okay, shifting gears slightly. So you've said publicly multiple times that people don't need to know how to code in order to succeed with AI. I think that's actually huge. And your mission of educating 1 billion people to use AI, which honestly I find super inspirational. And I think this room has a mix of both developers and builders. Can you convince them that that's not terrifying?
That's a two-part answer to it. So yes, that's true, but only for people who are not developers. I think anyone who's a developer or anyone who actually wants to build a career as a software developer or engineer and they're building products on a technical side, I think they need to learn how to code. The way I think about AI is that it's an accelerator, so it accelerates your expertise. An example is I've been creating content for 5 years. I've written a script, at least one script every single day. I can use AI to help me with ideation of my scripts, which I do. But if I didn't have that skill, my core expertise, and I use any AI system to help me write those scripts, it's going to give me 10 outputs. If I don't have any insights to it, all those scripts are going to sound great to me. I can spend time running all those 10 videos, they're all going to flop. But with my understanding of the field, understanding of what a good script looks like, internally I have over 2,000 data points for that my brain is constantly reviewing against. I know what's a good script and what's not and where AI is falling short, but I can still use it as a way to essentially understand what ideas I'm getting from AI. So to answer your question, you don't need to know how to code. You can do a lot of good things. For example, I use a lot of scraping sometimes just for ideation. We'll talk about my Reddit scraping workflow soon. I didn't code any of that. It was a simple prompt, and that's essentially coding that I was able to do from a simple prompt. So that's one thing. The other thing is with the whole AI thing, AI, the good part of AI is actually its own bottleneck, which is it can create outputs at scale. But every single output right now has to have a review of human at some component. We're not at a stage where AI is reviewing its own thing. And even if that happens, there's going to be a human loop somewhere, and that doesn't scale the same way. So if I create 10 scripts with AI in 10 minutes, I cannot review those 10 scripts and make them perfect in 10 minutes. That's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to take a lot of expertise. After all this ramble, the short answer is, yes, you can do great things even without coding, but that's for people who don't know how to coding and they just want to bridge the skill gap and the time gap and not be reliant on other teams to help them with those things, building quick dashboards, building quick little widgets for themselves to make their own workflows easier with a bit of an interface with AI and everything that's happening behind the scenes essentially. But if you're a developer or whatever your core expertise is, you use AI as an accelerator and not as a replacement, building on your core expertise, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and also it sounds like you have a lot of knowledge already in terms of making videos. You could easily turn that into skills, for example.
It is.
Okay. So yeah, nothing's stopping you from building AI workforce who's just going to help you create content. Yeah.
We are working on that to scale multiple channels, but I think even for that, like I was saying, it still has a last mile problem it still does a lot of pattern matching, and it will pretty much pick up those repeat formulas that we have in my previous videos, but sometimes we want to add a bit more touch to it. So everything, if we just do it that way, every video is going to eventually start sounding the same, and people will pick up on it. So we use that as a baseline, and then we just add more human touch to it.
Nice. Okay. I can also see a lot of that same kind of theory that you talked about in terms of like, as a developer, you still need to know how to code, apply to my role as well. So the skill that seems to matter most now is, especially for builders, or sorry, like developers who are building with AI, is more of like, can you write, it isn't anymore like, can you write this function from scratch? I feel like that's kind of gone. It's more of, can you review, can you validate, can you, direct AI generated code at scale? I think those skills are more key than ever, but in order to exceed at those skills or excel at those skills, you have to kind of know how to code, essentially. So I still feel like there's a huge aspect or a huge part for software engineers or developers still in this field. And then it's like another thing which is super important now is like, can you architect a system that can operate inside of itself safely? Can you debug when a model is hallucinating a tool call? Stuff like that. Those skills are super important. And
sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, let's go behind the curtains a little bit. In the past few months, tech has changed a lot. All the agents talk, anti-gravity and everything. How has your work changed? Are you mostly building skills? Are you mostly building agents? Are you mostly reviewing code? What does your day-to-day look like?
I think it's all of those packed into one. I think the great thing with AI is, productivity has increased like tenfold, but at the same time, like now you can make so much more with the time that you have. So there's obviously, I think there's definitely expectations in that, like, now you can produce a lot more as well. So I definitely see myself, using AI to accelerate writing code, or even recreating workflows that I have. Like I have like skills ready to go. For example, like if I'm writing a podcast script or like a technical blog, I might have a skill which teaches my agent how to write in my style already. So it's super easy and quick to deploy when there's something that I need to put out really quickly. And then, so honestly, this is also where skills kind of comes back into the picture, because the most interesting thing about skills is also like who owns them. So like a domain expert or a compliance officer or HR manager, or even like a senior buyer at a retail company, they can all write skills. Like all of these people with domain expertise, like they have incredible domain knowledge, which should be, written into skills. And I think that's something which I hope a lot of people in the industry are taking note of. It's not just AI builders, it's actually people with domain knowledge who should be writing skills. And so there's no need for an ML team if you're trying to add skills into your agentic pipelines. It's like people with domain knowledge can easily do that. And then so the developer's job kind of shifts from like, I'm the bottleneck for every AI capability to more of like, I'm the platform that lets every team in my company plug their expertise into an agent instead.
Makes
so
sense.
as a developer now, you can let someone in your business team add their expertise into your AI agent. Maybe someone in the finance team add their expertise through skills. So it's you're working at a much bigger level. Yeah.
Got a follow-up question on that. So again, just going back to the questions people ask about skills, how would you differentiate like a skill from a prompt? Do you say there's an overlap if there's no scripting that's part of a skill?
I think skills are, like prompts are one thing, right? Like you if you feel like there's a useful set of tasks which you've self-defined, and you know that it's something that your agent could be called to do over and over again, it's imperative that you write it in a skill. Because when, and then there's also something called progressive disclosure. So if you're writing prompts, you're putting all of that into the context, all right? But whereas if you're writing a skill, the agent is only going to use that particular skill if it's going to do a task which requires that skill. So you're not using up all of that context all the time if you're using prompts. So yeah, I think that's how I'd like to put it. And then I think kind of going back to you, right? You've also kind of talked about the challenges of scaling your content creation pipeline. So how are you using agents or AI to do so? And I know that creating AI slop is really looked down upon these days. So how are you navigating that?
There are two things to it. So like I was saying earlier, I'm scaling up more channels, and part of the way to do that is with my avatar. So I have a couple of channels right now in testing with my avatar. And the reason is I realized that for some of my content, if it's just transaction of information, it doesn't matter if it comes from me or if it comes from my avatar. And I tested that, and I realized that, again, people don't care. So I'm testing some of my content with avatar, with my my avatar clone and my voice clone, and it is performing really well. So that's one part. The other part is I like to call this thing like human slop and AI slop. So AI slop we're all familiar with. Human slop is something I feel like any content piece that exists, but people are just creating more copies of it just because it works well. I personally call it human slop, and I want to put more original content out there, the content that doesn't exist. And for that, I need actual insights. And the best way to get those insights is actually having conversations in person. You understand where people are at, what questions they have, where they're struggling, what are the challenges, and you turn that into content that people resonate with. Or you can't do that every day because meeting people and socializing with people is hard. So what I do is I have a workflow which scrapes Reddit. So every single week I run it, and it basically goes through a bunch of communities on Reddit to understand the sentiment of the audience, the questions they're asking, the concerns they might have. And I've noticed that usually that actually gives me a really good signal, and I'm probably the first one to talk about the topic just because it's so early, and those are the things people are thinking, but they're not saying out just yet because Reddit people feel a lot more comfortable just sharing their real thoughts. So that's like the first stage in my content process to ideate things. And then I have a workflow where I have a project or a gem that is trained on writing scripts, and that's trained on basically hundreds of my previous videos on how I write, how I think about a content topic. And let's say if there's a tutorial or something, what I do is I would, we'll run through those demos, just use Gemini, put the video, and it basically does that for me. So those are, few ways that I use AI, which usually are well appreciated by the public, like, the audience. So just easier to kind of talk to everyone from that lens.
That's awesome. And I think these insights are like super helpful. But we've been talking a lot now. So let's actually show people what, your pipeline kind of looks like. Sure. And how it looks like in practice.
Yeah. Let's do it. So this is an example, which I was saying earlier. Again, just a very simple prompt, not even a scale. I have a simple prompt that it's connected to a tool, Appify, which is going to call another tool within Appify to scrape the Reddit. Now I'm not sure how long the video is going to run, but whatever skills I have built inside Claude is going to pull those skills automatically and build out the whole report for what I was saying in terms of the content topics that we're trying to build. The other thing is, like I was saying earlier, I like to start with one piece at a time. So we're starting with this, and I've been running this for 3-4 months now, and it's been working really, really well for those content ideation pieces. I think we can probably move on to the next one.
Awesome.
We probably should have clipped the video for it to not run for the whole run. But essentially the other one is like this gem for the new content thing that I'm trying. So what we do is every time there's any video or any topic, or if there's a tutorial or a workflow, we just upload that video in here. So Gemini is one of the only tools that can actually reason over videos. It's so funny. Still, Google and Gemini is the only model that can do that. So what I do is we would upload the video, and inside the gem, we don't have a scale, we just have a prompt because I didn't really see a need for a scale. But that prompt was turned by basically training that into from my hundreds of videos. And now we're going to use this to, create a script based on the research and the topic that we're going to upload from the video. And it's going to give me 3 different options for the different ways I can talk about this topic. And those are not my final output. It's just a way for me to quickly ideate different ways that I've talked about this in the past or something similar in the past that I could use as a reference as I do my own sort of brainstorming from there. I don't think we have to wait for the results. We can probably move on to the next one. And then once I have all these pieces being done together, okay, so my workflow for scraping works. I get great content ideas. My workflow works for turning that into a script. Now I can use something like anti-gravity to start putting that into an agent, so more orchestrate the workflow. So it can automatically, every week on a schedule, run the workflow using Appify. Again, my anti-gravity has my credentials from API for it to access. And then, select the topics based on my content strategy file, which is like an MD file. And then from there on, create the script using this gem we just saw. Again, that gem is turned into a skill in this case because it's more of an agentic workflow here. And now my output would be, Monday morning, have a few videos I can just quickly review and see if these are the topics I want to talk about this week or not on this specific channel.
Amazing.
Yeah, we can go to the next one. The other thing I love using AI for, I think it's like really goes for anyone, is using it for learning anything. My strength is like short form content. So I've been trying to learn how to like create content for LinkedIn without making it sound like a slop or, typical AI written posts that you see on LinkedIn everywhere. So I'm really trying to learn how to write content for LinkedIn and not use AI to write content for LinkedIn. So what I did, I just used Notebook LM, asked it to research, all the strategies, all the experts from LinkedIn who talk about writing on LinkedIn. And Notebook LM just did all the research, turned this into a notebook. And now I can basically like chat with this notebook, put in my ID and help me generate ideas and teach me how to approach LinkedIn, content LinkedIn for my topics I want to talk about. Yeah, I think Notebook LM is actually very underrated for learning. I even had one of my followers get on a call. And so this gentleman, he runs a staging business somewhere in the States. And he called someone up to cold call business, like he wanted to generate more leads. And this company quoted him $12,000. And then funny enough, he came across a Notebook LM video on my channel and he decided to try that out. So he asked Notebook LM to teach him how to do cold calling, but very specific to his industry. And Notebook LM built him a notebook. He turned that into a podcast that he listened during his commute for a week. And then he was telling me on a call that he was able to close 2 clients within a week. And he learned that just like listening to the podcast during his commute to work. I think it's a great learning tool.
Yeah, I agree. I think Notebook LM is like an excellent tool, especially if you're doing research. And I love all the features that you can do out of it. Besides, like for example, you can create mind maps or even quizzes.
Yeah.
And then previously, when you were showcasing how like you uploaded a short to Gemini, yeah, I agree. I love the video understanding feature that Gemini has. I think it's one of the best. And even for me, like for example, I post a lot of podcasts on Google Cloud. And I'm trying to get the intro right? Like trying to have an intro that people would actually stick around on YouTube and watch. So I just upload the intro and I'll ask Gemini, like, is this intro good for YouTube? Like, how can I improve this? Like, can you give me a rating? And it does a fantastic job of that, yeah.
I upload all my reels before I upload to actual platform on there. It is a strategy document, so I just ask it to review it against a strategy document and tell me like where the engagement drop-off points could be or where my script is weak. It's so powerful.
Amazing. Thank you for all those demos, Kushang. So now I kind of want to take a quick beat and then talk about what we just announced at Google I/O because like everything I'm about to show you kind of sits on top of that, right? So the short version at I/O we shipped a unified agentic development kit. So anti-gravity 2.0, the managed agents API, and then a whole set of enhancements to the Gemini enterprise agent platform. So the point has been to kind of close the gap between, I'm prototyping this on my laptop to actually this is running in production inside my company, like secure cloud boundary. And the way I want to think about all of this is, because there's a lot of pieces, we've kind of like at Google Cloud, we've kind of like broken it into 4 different rungs that you can see here in this diagram. Each rung has like a different level of control. And the key thing is they're all additive, right? So let's actually talk about that, yeah. At rung 1, you have Agent Studio. So this is a low-code tool. And it's perfect for builders, actually, so it's perfect. So it's a visual workspace inside of Agent Platform. You discover models in Model Garden, you engineer prompts, you wire up tools, and then you ship an agent without having to write code. And this is honestly where I feel like a lot of builders can actually excel. And Kushang, for example, if you're trying to build like a business-facing team or even agents to kick off your video process, like this would be a really great place to start. And then also the cool thing is the agent that you build here runs on the exact same runtime as everything else. So, it's huge. And then the second thing that we have is the managed agents API. So this is more for technical teams who want to manage the mission and not the machine, right? So you define what agents should do, and then Google Cloud handles all of the heavy lifting. So it's basically agent as a service, and then there's nothing that you have to kind of worry about managing. You package up your instructions, your skills, your tools, and then you post it, and then Gemini builds the agent for you. So each agent gets its own secure sandbox, and this is a great option for teams that want to ship fast, but still want enterprise-grade isolation built in. And then on the third rung, we have anti-gravity, and I'm sure a lot of people have already experimented with it. It's a great agentic IDE. And then, of course, we have ADK 2.0, which is the new upgrade to our ADK framework. So the big thing about ADK 2.0 is essentially the unified graph-based engine. So it gives you kind of a slider between dynamic model-led reasoning on one end and then super strict deterministic workflows on the other. So you can decide per workflow how much you want to use a model to decide versus how much you kind of want to hard code instead. So there's also collaborative workflows, basically how you build self-managing agent teams. And then also there's a coordinator which delegates to sub-agents using explicit modes, like, for example, chat or task or singleton, etc. So this is a great stack that we've come up with. And then what I kind of want to set the stage for what I'm going to be demoing is something called long-running agents, which a lot of people now are talking about it, but I think the term long-running agents kind of gets thrown around a lot, but a lot of folks haven't actually built one or seen one in action. So most of the agent demos that you have seen are actually stateless, right? So you give the model a prompt, it gives you back an answer, and then kind of the conversation ends, or it gives you back an answer that you're looking for, or it does a task, and then the conversation ends, right? And so even if you let it sit there for 15 minutes going back and forth, the entire thing is kind of still living inside of a single context window. So once that gets filled up, it gets discarded. So you have to start all over again. But a long-running agent is the opposite of that. It maintains state across sessions. It operates for hours, days, or sometimes even weeks. So it's really great for doing a lot of those tasks that I feel like we humans have to deal with. Things which take months, for example, maybe stuff like dealing with the government or any type of think of a long-running task that you have. And then there's a mental shift, right? So your unit of work isn't a prompt anymore. It's a workflow. The agent itself is a multi-step process, end to end. So have you seen kind of this being used yet? Maybe by your followers? Are people building about this, talking about this?
I haven't personally used long-running agents, but every conversation I've had about this, mostly from developers usually, and just because sometimes, a coding workflow or coding agents, there's multiple cycles, because you write something, they use the browser to test, write again, test and write again, all the iterations that happen, and sometimes those builds take time, which is where I've been hearing about long-running agents, but I haven't used one personally yet.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll be taking a look today. Yeah. There's a couple of things that need to be true for a long-running agent to actually work, like an agentic system. First of all, every state transition needs something called a durable checkpoint. So we talked about how most agents that you see today, which are deployed, are often stateless. But with long-running agent, state has to be persisted on every single transition, right? So because that's the reality, your container might crash, your program might crash, so state has to be preserved. And so when your server redeploys, the state is persistent. For example, a human will take 3 days to sign a document, And then when an agent wakes up, whether that's in 10 minutes or 10 days, it has to be able to pick up from exactly where it left off. So no hallucinated memory, no kind of invented intermediate steps, like no checking, like, wait, did I already do this? So an agent needs to be able to maintain that state, kind of essentially think of memory of like what has happened so far. It needs to know state. And then another thing is that I've noticed like people often build a single agent that writes code and then reviews the code. It does this, the same agent is doing both of those tasks. And then, so it's like, it's generating the answer and validating the answer. So there's an issue here. So there's been kind of a lot of research around this, and what's been concluded is that when an agent evaluates in its own output, it consistently overrates it. So it's almost like overconfident about how good the answer is. So that pattern, when you're building long-running agents, is something that you should be aware of. So the agent can't be grading its own work. So you should be having separate agents who are like actually looking at the work that your long-running agent is doing to determine and evaluate it.
Performance review meetings.
Yes. So another thing that is super important in long-running agents, and kind of it comes up, these are issues that needed to be tackled, and there were kind of blockers as to why it took so long to get long-running agents out there. Is the first thing is something called context degradation, right? So even with a 1 million token context window, quality will drop, long before that window fills up. It's something called context rot, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard about this, but essentially, even if like you have a really large context window, filling it up will result in rot. So if your agent has been running for a week, for like an example, and it's dragging around its entire history with it as it's running, the reasoning actually gets worse and worse. So it's not getting better. So that's an issue that has been faced, right? So another blocker was, there's no actual real primitives for persistent state. So without any external structure, agents often drift. Like they break things, or worse, they just give up because they've lost track of where they are within that workflow. And then the third blocker was actually self-verification, which is the same problem of evaluation, which I just mentioned. So if a long-running agent can't tell what it's actually done and if it's actually done well, so you've just built like a really expensive way to generate like essentially garbage. So Google has addressed these 3 problems in the last year. So what we've done is there's now better agent harnesses. So frameworks like ADK, where you can compose planners, generators, and evaluators into you can do all of this instead of just putting this into one monolithic loop, which is what you had to do previously. And then now you have something called persistent memory patterns. So living plans stored as markdown, change logs as labs, and also things like the Ralph Roop pattern for ensuring task completion. And then now we also have managed infrastructure on the Google side and on the Gemini agent enterprise platform.
So in a way, it's like how we work with humans projects. So like these are just like a project management software with all the artifacts, what the project details are, what the goals are. The managed agent or managed infrastructure is essentially, again, just a way to control who gets access to what, who's going to do what. So
exactly.
Very similar parallels.
Exactly. Yeah. You're having like better memory management. You're having better agent harnesses. Yeah. So let's play this video. And here I'm going to show you a demo of a long-running agent. There's also a blog post about this demo that you can check out that Google Cloud has put out. But essentially, it's about an long-running onboarding agent when you have employees onboarding into your company. So yeah, let's start kicking this off. So you can start a fresh case where you want to onboard a new employee, and then you can see all of the things which are required. You would want your employee to sign a packet, and this agent is is running and ensuring that all of these things are happening in the back end. It checks if the hardware delivery has been completed. It's also waiting for the employee action next. And this is a great example for long-running agents. And this entire repository for this project is available online. It's built entirely on ADK, so you can also easily replicate this and deploy this. Awesome. Awesome. So that's the demo, and we're open for any live Q&As.
Amazing. I'm going to come back to the stage and help moderate the Q&A. So we have some friends with microphones floating around. I'm also going to welcome Amit back to the stage. And so we're going to open the floor for any questions. We have about 15, 20 minutes or so. So any questions from anyone in the group related to anything we've shared today? There's a hand back there. Can we run a microphone to her, please?
I love that microphone.
So you could just speak into the box, yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. So I have a question that we already working on integration orchestration part, right? And how are we managing balancing rapid AI innovation with responsible AI governance at scale? How we are doing that? Because still organizations are there, they are struggling from augmentation to orchestration, and many organizations already they started working on the orchestration part. So how we are maintaining that governance thing, the more security, because it's all about the data, right? So it should be starting from the beginning, or how we should plan it and how we are balancing it.
You want to take that one?
Go ahead.
I mean, from the model development side, everything we're deploying is done in a very safe and responsible manner. It's actually the DeepMind mission since day one. So safety, responsibility, it's baked into the whole development process. So there's extensive evaluations that are done internally and externally for every single model and product release. Of course, it's like when you're deploying these things at scale, there's a responsibility that comes to the developer or builder in that sense as well, that you need to be aware of the data pipelines you're doing and any type of vulnerabilities. I think you do need to be aware of that. And I think to your point, when you're thinking about being an AI builder in this space, that is the responsibility that you also inherit when you're trying to deploy these at enterprise scale. So I think that's just my one advice to you, is make sure you're aware of where all your data is going, make sure you understand that end-to-end process. But from the Google side, we do everything we can, and we do not take this lighthearted. There's a huge team internally that works on safety, trust, and making sure the models are at that high bar that we expect when we do release them. And that's why you've been seeing a lot of the models that we release do go out in preview as well, to make sure that we're extensively testing those models. And actually, as I was just sitting there, we actually just did general availability for Nano Banana 2 and Nano Banana Pro. So there is a very long life cycle that goes into making sure when we actually do release these models for general availability, that we feel comfortable that all the safety and testing has been done internally.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the question. Okay, we have a few questions over here. Maybe we'll go back there. Yeah, perfect.
So, thank you. Maybe I can stand up here.
Yeah.
So, it's really interesting and amazing to see the variety of products Google is developing, and also in general, what is happening outside in the AI world. The question is how to determine which level of intelligence we need to solve a task. So we had the onboarding tool now, and me as a researcher, I try to go for the highest level, because as a researcher, we want to reach the state of the art. But there are many tasks where we don't need this complexity. I think you also mentioned that point. So is there a way to see, okay, we have all these models, this one would be the best fit for this task, and eventually we update it at some point, and then you have to update the whole system to have a new sort of intelligence level. So, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no perfect playbook, and I think this is kind of the beauty and the beast of being in this space right now, is that you have all these models and tools available, but you also have to kind of figure out what works best for your particular workflows. In general, I think people always over-index a little bit too much on going to like the pro model by default with extended thinking already on. Our Flash models and Flash-like models are extremely capable, so I do recommend thinking about how you're utilizing these models into kind of the orchestration, but also, as I mentioned, those open models as well. There's tons of development processes you can do around end-to-end applications that you might have that fallback mechanism for offline use cases. You might use the Flash model. There's a lot of different ways you can kind of orchestrate it, but ultimately, I think for everybody in the room, I always recommend like build the evals for your particular use cases. Make sure you're doing the thorough research before you deploy anything. And I think you will find a lot of the times that you don't always need to go to the most powerful model. If you really want those really fast agentic experiences, we have a really capable series of models. But Smitha, I don't know if you have anything to add there.
I think in what Amit said, I completely agree with. But in spite of all the models, it's also a focus on like how you're building that agentic system as well. Like we talked about skills, we talked about prompting, better prompting. You might be able to solve your problem by writing a skill, for example, or maybe you just need better prompting. So without even going into the model layer yet, it's all about like the processes as well before you even get there.
I would agree. I think if you're building from scalability perspective and everything is customer facing, evals, like that's the only way to actually measure everything. But I would say don't change anything that's not broken. I use older models for so many tasks just because it's getting the results. If you see certain things you're trying to do and the current models have limitations and you're not getting the results, then I would explore the newer models that are coming out to see if those are the models capable enough with more intelligence and the power behind them to solve the problem. If there is something that's working, don't change it. Also, what people don't realize is that every single model, it's like the AI is dynamic like any other technology we've ever had. It's non-deterministic. So even if you change the model, your instructions, your prompting probably has to change as well for you to actually get the same results because it's going to behave differently. So, which is another reason why you shouldn't change things if it's not broken. And then just try new models if there's a problem you're trying to solve that's not being solved from other models.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the question. All right, we had a hand up over here.
Okay then. Thank you guys for the conversation. I'd like to pick your brains a bit. So I am actually in the camp of people who believe that AI didn't make like anything easier or faster. It just made you more efficient, allow you to do more. I say this because pre-AI there was this notion of build fast, break things, and I believe we did that because we needed to learn faster, and the best way to learn is to make mistakes. But with AI now, your accuracy has like 10x or whatever, but the catch is you need to know what you say. So I think it's what you're alluding to, like how you use AI to write your scripts. It's much easier, but because you already have a background in script writing, you can now handle writing 5-7 scripts at a time. Compared to me, I'm an engineer. Yeah. Even writing one script, I may have no idea what I'm doing. But if you gave me an agent to now write, I don't know, work on 3 or 4 different Python scripts at the same time, I would understand what I'm doing because that's like where my expertise is. Yeah. So like, what's your, as all three of you, what's your take on this?
I can kind of speak to this. So I think I completely agree with what you're saying, right? Like AI has actually made you more productive in the domain expertise that you have. And I think that's what you're alluding to as well, right? So it's not that AI is going to make you a better scriptwriter if you didn't have that expertise to begin with. Now, you can definitely be generating scripts much faster, that's for sure. But you don't know if that's good because you can't evaluate that yourself. But you're now able to do what you're good at like 10x scale. So I think there's definitely a huge advantage here, yeah.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Your domain expertise, like all the scripts I'm writing with AI, I'm not using them. Those are just the starting points for me to just quickly take those talking points and see, okay, what can I do and then mishmash these together. But at the same time, like I think I alluded to as well, right now we have this problem where AI generates the output at scale. but the human judgment doesn't scale the same way to review all those outputs, which is where a gap is when you talk about scaling from like a very rapid perspective and bridging a bunch of different skills that you might not have.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, the value of being human in an AI-first world is only going to continue to be enhanced. I think as the model capabilities keep getting better, I think our own internal barometer for like quality continues to be at a very high bar, and I think we have to collectively keep it there. I think you need to understand the outputs from these models is the most important thing, but also trying to find those right ways to augment them into your day-to-day to hopefully become more powerful and efficient as well.
Awesome. Thanks for the question. I believe you, yes, in the gray, if we can run a microphone to the front. Awesome.
Hi, thank you so much. Phenomenal panel, very inspiring. I have a very boring question. How do you guys deal with hallucinations? AI hallucinations. Should have made it clear.
I think as you still see in the models, like this does still happen in even the latest generation. I think you have to be aware of like how much you're pushing the models, and again, building those evals out to make sure that as the outputs come out, that you actually have that ability to kind of track where the model does tend to go off pace. But I think we are seeing improvements over the past year, even from 2.5 to 3.5 now. We've seen those hallucinations reducing, but that is still a reality of models, and that's a reality of humans as well. We also still hallucinate. So I think it's just, as the models keep getting better and better, I think it's more important that you do build those evals out, because that is the reality of these large language models.
From the work I do, my approach is multi-model orchestration. Have a model review somebody else's work, just a way to quick fact check to see if there's any discrepancy between the results from fact checking perspective and hallucination.
And I think having more guardrails is a huge thing. Like for example, you can try to minimize your risk of hallucinations if it's like a task that you can easily replicate and you can write a skill for, right? You're adding structure to the flow of the model, and then that's one way to actually minimize that.
Thank you so much.
All right. I believe you were next, and then I'll go Damilar, and then Corey. Good to see you guys again. And then we'll see if we have time at the end.
You mentioned the importance of agent reasoning reliability, combating context rot with internal state management. Do you have anyone working on an internal confidence or self-consistency metric built into the architecture during the reasoning process? Or is the reasoning quality and self-consistency only evaluated after the fact from the output?
I can't really speak super confidently on this, but in terms of like, if you're talking about, persistent state, this is something that ADK 2.0 is now handling. If you're talking about, better management of memory, that's something that we're already built into ADK. So in terms of like whether it's built after the fact or before, it's not something I can speak confidently to. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Damilar back there in the white T-shirt.
Much. I would like to ask two questions. Probably you've mentioned evals in your responses. Could you please help with like best practices in like your own processes of how you create your evals, just to share, and maybe a general understanding on your evals process and how we could implement that? Thanks.
Yeah, I'm sure you folks can speak to it a little bit better, but I was speaking about this to somebody outside. Like best practices right now in this industry are changing like day to day, it feels like. So I can advocate on my own kind of workflows, but I really do feel adamantly like all of you need to like develop these evals for your specific use cases, and that's the only way that you can trust the output of them realistically in the long term. And having that understanding from the start, I think is super critical for the long-term success of this industry. But maybe you both want to shed some light on that.
Specifically when it comes to agentic evaluation, there's like a ton of documentation on the different processes that you can do. There's also Gemini Enterprise Agent Platforms comes with its own API for evaluation. So whether it's RAG systems, just multi-agentic systems, there we have extensive documentation that you can definitely check out.
Okay, question from Corey.
Hey everyone, great panel so far. I have a question about complex real-time workflows, and I know these are emerging best practices perhaps, but when you have an agent or agents working with external softwares and databases and knowledge bases and skills, and they have to work in real time, so call it like under 500 milliseconds, are you seeing anything emerging where how it needs to get the information? You talked about dripping out pieces of information piece by piece. What are you seeing works well for this? Because I imagine these will be more use cases like this in the future.
So whenever you're building real-time systems, like you can also take a look at how it was done with just, for example, like APIs back in the day. Like you had polling, you had something like WebRTC, etc. So I think trying to translate as much of that as possible when you're building agentic systems. And then also these are frameworks which are being built as we speak. So there's no playbook for this. But yeah, I know that DeepMind, for example, you have streaming products already. So maybe you could speak to this. Yeah.
We do. We're working on a lot of cool stuff in this area right now, and I think also on the research front, there's still a lot of breakthroughs that we're really focused on kind of developing these next generation solutions. So the team's really focused on 3 particular areas. I think long-term reasoning, continual learning, and memory continues to be areas that we're focused on kind of building towards AGI. So it's still a lot of work to do, and as you mentioned, very early days in this, but I think we're seeing some really positive signs over the past 3 months. So excited to keep moving forward with those.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, I think we have time for 1 or 2 more questions. Red shirt over here. And apologies, I don't know everyone's name.
Hi, thanks all of you for your time. I had a question about AI at scale, right? Because in one of your slides, you showed the companies that Google caters to, and I work in one of them. And I think as a startup, it's the easiest to become AI native right now. But at Google, you just said you've scaled from 25% to 75% code being generated by AI. So I was wondering, how are you going to help your enterprise customers do that at scale? And are forward deployed engineers the only solution, or do you have any technical takeaways or lessons learned since you've built that up at scale?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different amazing Google programs. So Google for Startups does a fantastic job of servicing companies from pre-seed all the way up until their IPOs. So there's a long range of tasks that the Google for Startups team is doing. Our Google Cloud team does fantastic work with our enterprise customers. So there are lots of one-to-one engagements. There are many one-to-scale engagements as well. So please keep an eye on the Google boards. There's tons of these engagements happening on a week-to-week basis. And our goal is to service folks at all levels of your engagement, whether you're brand new to first time building with AI and just getting started with AI Studio, or you're building with the Gemini Enterprise Agent Platform. There's lots of solutions far in between. So we are really catering to those next generation solutions, but we also want to bring as many people into our ecosystem as possible. And I think that's the mission right now. We want to get 1 billion builders that are building with AI over the coming years. I think both ends of the spectrum, whether you're deploying at enterprise scale or you're doing your first application, I think everything in between, we're trying to service all those areas.
Sounds good, thanks.
And I'll just add that we do have some members of our Google Cloud team that are joining us as volunteers today. So they'll be outside in the networking hour. Feel free to pull someone, ask them any specific questions that you have. I think we have time for 1 more question, and then we'll start wrapping things up. Yeah, in the hat right here.
Yeah, I could just make one quick point on the cloud integration with DeepMind, and that is a really big part of how our research is also evolving. We are very much a one Google approach in this, that the feedback we get from our cloud teams goes directly back to our research teams, which shows up in the next model iteration. So any of the feedback you have, both good and bad, we'd love to hear it. So just keep it coming.
I have a feedback form at the end of this. So.
Love it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My question is a bit more abstract. Yesterday, a report came out from TechCrunch that tech CEOs are sort of living in an AI psychosis. And we all saw that, I think, from last year, December, something changed. And we all engineers and builders are trying to build things and also understand the cost perspective of that. So where do you see it going next? Like, how should builders address the moving, I would say the moving target of what to build next? Because everyone's trying to be AI native. But what should builders focus on? Like, how much of this is just, I don't want to use the word delusional, but just like where should builders focus on next?
Yeah, it's a great question. I quickly glanced through that TechCrunch article yesterday. I need to spend a little more time reading the ins and outs of it, but it seems like an interesting disconnect with leadership and what the actual capabilities are right now. And I think that actually just shows you the builders, you actually have more power than ever. If you actually understand these tools inside and out, you are probably ahead of most people in the world right now. So all I can suggest to you is just continue pushing the forefront here. As you can see with some of the demos here, there's some amazing capabilities that you can build with today. But just imagine 6-12 months from now, if you continue to push the boundaries of these models and products, you're going to be ahead of most people in the world. And I think that gives you so much power as a builder right now. So I just empower you to keep pushing the boundaries and see what these models and products can do.
Thanks for the question. We're going to start wrapping up. Any final thoughts, Smitha, Kashank, that you want to share?
I'll just answer the question from my lens, the way I think about these things. I would just chase my curiosity, keep building on my core expertise, which was the theme of our conversation as well, and just chase my curiosity. Possibilities are endless. You don't know what's going to happen, so don't dwell on what's going to happen. Just have fun.
Yeah, agreed. I think you can just push your domain expertise to like the max now with what you can do with AI. Oh, and then also, I don't know your name, but we can chat after, and I would love to answer your question or put you in touch with someone who can. Yeah.
So instead of token maxing, we're domain expertise maxing.
Exactly.
Amazing. Well, thank you all so much for the questions and the engagement. We are going to start moving towards our wrap up. So a big thanks to Amit, Smitha, and Kashank for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Such an exciting time to innovate and build. I hope everyone is leaving with more questions, is feeling inspired, and is really just ready to seize this unique moment. So whether you're technical or deeply passionate about a subject, everyone can truly be a builder today. So before we let you go, we're going to share an exciting new offer from our team. It's called AI Learning Labs. These are free hands-on events that are presented in real time, so you can hear tips and tricks straight from Google developer experts at the forefront of building with AI. These experts will support you with troubleshooting, mastering the techniques and tools being taught, and you'll leave with practical experience and even a certificate of completion. These are totally free, and they run every month, I believe. The last week of every month, we offer them in 3 languages, English, Spanish, and Portuguese. So please scan the QR code, and I believe we have some cards floating around the event space as well. If you're looking to really get hands-on and build, this is a fantastic offering that's new, and we want to offer it to all of you. All right, and now a small ask. As we spoke about earlier, we truly, really appreciate the feedback. We want to hear about this event series. This is constantly evolving. Every AI gathering has a different flavor to it, so I'd love to hear about your experience today. We also want to know what your experience is like using Google AI tools, if there's any room for improvement, what's working well. And so please take a minute to scan this QR code and share your feedback with us. I'll also be sharing this in a wrap up thank you email with you all as well.
And can we do a group selfie with the team?
Absolutely,
everyone?
yeah.
All
Let's do that. Yeah. Is everyone okay with the group selfie? Yeah. Okay. Are we going to take a group selfie?
Well, it's also a video. Give us a cheers.
All right.
We're gonna take up 2 up.
Yeah. Let's.
Like 3, 2, 1. How was it?
Hey!
Let's do it one more time. 3, 2, 1. How was it?
Great.
Woo! All right. Okay, well, thank you all so much for entertaining us. It was really great to have you all here. For the folks that are here in person, we have some light bites outside, and any of our speakers are happy to continue chatting with you. And for the folks online, thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you all next time. Bye, everyone.
That's great.